page, which is your new challenge. This is your new homework assignment. Now that you have written your abstract, we're going to build upon that to go on to the specific games. Okay, so just to go back to the proposal itself, the abstract was what we talked about before, and now we're going to go move on to our specific games page, another overview page, and that's before we go on to write the real proposal. So these are just summary pages that help our reviewers to see our vision. Okay, I also wanted to mention that there is an NSF style, and in fact, the graduate handbook says you can use NSF style. We are de-emphasizing it here just to keep all of our class together. But basically, the NSF style doesn't really have an abstract, but it does have this something like a specific games page. It calls it the summary. Okay, what you'll notice if you read the NIH guidelines for the specific game page is that they're very similar to the guidelines for an abstract. There are a few salient features I'll show you that are a little different. One is that the specific game page tends to be a little more specific about the aims or the objectives, where the abstract tends to be more of the bigger long-term objectives. The aims page tends to be focused more on specific smaller goals, where the abstract tends to be more big picture research design. So those are some of the features, but really there's a lot of commonality between them, and we'll talk about how to avoid really overlap. So if you look at the components of an aims page, there's a lot of similarity to the abstract. You will have information on the background and the gap in the field, just like an abstract. You will have information on the goals and the approach and the outcome, just like the abstract. The difference here is that you're going to add two new topics. One is you're going to have an overview of your specific games. You're going to go a little bit more in depth into what the experiments and the results are going to look like. And you'll also add comments on innovation, maybe future directions, and you'll put in a nice conclusion. So you're really expanding what you had in the abstract. And so if you look at some of the topics that are similar to the abstract, they all tend to be the topics at the beginning. The aims and the innovation and those concepts are something that we develop more in this aims page. And so you're going to be pushing yourself in this next assignment to really further develop your proposal, thinking more deeply about the experiments you're going to do and how they're going to tell you what you want to know. Okay, like I did with the abstract, I thought we would break down a specific aims page, and I got this as an example from National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. They have some sample applications, and so I took this from Dr. Gordon, her abstract or her specific aims page. So let's kind of break it down. And what I did last time was we broke it down color coding different sections, and I want to just do that with you here. So what I have done in this is to highlight the background information. Something that she did in her proposal is to add like a kind of overall objectives sentence at the beginning. I don't see that very commonly, but you're welcome to do that if you want to. But you can see she has a nice amount of background information, starting with the big picture on biofilms and bacterial infection. She then narrows down into the gap in the field, which is here in yellow, with little or no depth, quantitative knowledge regarding the impact of spatial structure mechanism on disease course. So there's the little to no information. That's what you're looking for. So she proposes here to work on this project. And then I show you some of the kind of simple language that makes these types of documents easy to read for the reviewer. The long-term goal is the central hypothesis, the rationale. Okay, and those are similar things to the abstract. You guys are familiar with that. Let's talk about the differences. So in addition to talking about sort of all those kind of bigger picture issues, you want to get a little more granular in your specific aims page and really start talking about your aims. So remember, we've talked about aims. Aims are sort of the mini goals that you need to achieve to get to your long-term goal. So for example, here in her proposal, she wants to determine the spatial structure and mechanics of biofilm infection, determine the spatial arrangement of bacterial growth, and determine the role of that spatial structure in the interactions. So she's identified kind of 3 bigger problems that will lead to the accomplishing of her long-term goal, which is to find new strategies for remediating biofilm infections. Okay, so you want these aims now to have mini goals, goals that need to be achieved to get to your long-term goal. And like I said in the abstract worksheet we talked about last time, the long-term goal should be a big goal, maybe a 10, maybe even 20-year goal. the aims in this proposal want to be more like a 4-year goal. Think about what you can accomplish in your graduate careers, and that's about right. Okay, I would say for your proposal, I would aim to have 2 specific aims. You can see here there are 3, but this is a full R01, which is probably 4 years of maybe 3 or 4 students. So you want to maybe focus a little bit more. And then notice at the very end, there's a comment on expected outcomes, positive impact. They don't talk as much about innovation here, but that's another topic that could come up. Okay, so hopefully now you're seeing kind of the format. Let's look at this is actually one of my grants. I took out one of my own specific aims page. And so just like I did last time, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to let you do the kind of dissecting, the breakdown of this so that you can kind of learn from it. So we won't do that in class because I'm run out of time anyway. I'll let you do that yourself. Let's just wrap up here by talking about a few tips. So just like the abstract, you want to try to use simple language. Don't use all simple language. You want to use some complex language, some colorful verbs. But a lot of the sentences you want to just be straight to the point. So feel free to use simple language in these. Also, you're going to be revising and rewriting. So don't worry about just getting something on paper that kind of puts everything down on page and that you can talk about. Okay, and then finally, the last thing I want to talk about, and this came up with some students regarding the abstract. Your aims page, your aims that you decide to do, now you're really getting into your aims. You really need to think about what experiments you're going to do. What are your mini goals? And I want to mention an issue which is about the dependence of the aims. In general, you want to have aims that are independent from each other. What do I mean by that? Independence here means that you do not have to achieve the goal of aim 1 to make progress on aim 2, okay? So in other words, you can be in parallel working on these 2 aims together, not one after the other. It's like you in the lab are going to probably have 2 parallel projects you'll work on to make progress on both, but they don't actually need to be affecting each other. So that's what independence means. Let me give you an idea of what independence means in terms of your aims. So for example, 2 really nice independent aims would be, I'm going to develop a reaction to make my structure, and then I'm going to test it for biological activity. And aim 2 would be, all right, and I'm going to take my reaction, I'm going to make a different structure, and I'm going to test it in biological activity. Those 2 aims can be done in parallel because you really have 2 different structures you're pursuing. An example of a dependent aim would be, aim 1 would be to make the reaction, develop the reaction to make structure 1, and then in aim 2, I would do the biological testing. Obviously then in that case, aim 1 has to be accomplished before aim 2. What you want to do is diversify your project to have 2 aims that are parallel and both equally interesting. Maybe they build on for your long-term goal, but they are in parallel. Okay, so with that, I'll turn the floor over to Ed, who will do the in-class activity and help you guys learn how to start writing. I'll just end by saying you have a homework assignment, which is to get the first draft of your specific aims page based on our discussion here today. And I want to note very clearly that one of the features of this class that we've done for a few years is to give your specific aims page to a faculty member, not your research advisor, but to a different faculty member to get feedback on your idea and maybe some things to think about as you're developing your idea. We have found that this feedback from faculty at this early stage can be really helpful to kind of push you in the right direction and make a really quality proposal. So don't worry about the writing being perfect. We all know that you're still working on that, but we want you to put together an aims page that really highlights what you want to do so we can give you that good advice. Okay, and with that, I am going to unshare my screen.